Happy 2024.
Well, here we have it.
Election year, and none other than the Prime Minister is here.
Prime Minister is here to ask some of the questions about the post office scandal, so let's see what he has to say. We have also seen the scandal hit the front page of one of the newspapers.
Let's start looking at the front pages today. The Sunday Times says the government is looking at ways of clearing post office managers whose lives have been ruined by that big scandal. We'll ask Rishi Sunak what that means later.
So we have got there the mention of the petition to strip the former boss Vennells of CBE hit 760,000. I believe we are now up to 800,000. So thank you to everybody again for signing. So in the Sunday Times, it's post office fury intensifies, growing pressure for all sub-postmasters to be cleared, which has led to the Justice Secretary announcing that he's investigating what's happening with these issues, and that Lib Dem leaders failed to heed numerous warnings. It has previously come out about Ed Davey refusing to meet Alan Bates at first, leader of the Justice for Sub-Postmasters Alliance, but he has now come out to claim and clarify that he actually did meet him later on. So it's kind of seems that it was a bit chaotic at that time in the government. So now it does seem like a good point to drop in with a quick update on the petition. And even though the Times has got it at 760,000, obviously they write the story and send it out to print beforehand. We have now reached 851,695 signatures at the moment. So thank you again to everybody who is signing this signature. I think it's really important and allows us to continue to put pressure on the government to do the right thing here. Again, I have been overwhelmed by your emails. Thank you very much. I promise I have read every single one of them. I hope you do understand at the moment that I have prioritised the number of sub-postmasters that have come out and have emailed me. Like I said previously, I've been absolutely humbled by their contact and really appreciative. So I have prioritised replying to them first. But please do know that I am reading all the comments about all the ideas and all the views and your experiences, and it's really important. So thank you for sending those. Some people have started to ask if I am able to publicise their stories more widely, and that is something that I'm absolutely happy to do and absolutely committed to doing. So again, if you do want that, then absolutely feel free to contact me and we can see what we can do. So let's jump back now into what Rishi Sunak has to say on the post office scandal itself. We'll have a listen in and then we'll have a bit of a chat about it.
We will talk more about your approach and the election in a few minutes, but I want to touch on a few things that have really raised people's eyebrows in the last few months. Now, the scandal at the post office has shone a light on how many lives were ruined, and ITV Drama has really highlighted what happened there. We'll be talking to one of the sub-postmasters a bit later, but Susan Knight, who is a postmistress, has this question for you, and you can watch it on there.
What are you going to do to ensure that we get fair and final compensation, not in dribs and drabs? It's rightfully given and not at a snail's pace. Please stop making us still feel like victims.
Now, I want to remind our viewers that the post office is wholly owned by the government, so that perhaps point has not been made that much. Only 11 out of 475 of the full and final compensation deals have been completed. Can you set a deadline? Can you tell people like Susan when it's all going to be sorted out?
So, look, everyone has been shocked by watching what they have done over the past few days and beyond, and it is an appalling miscarriage of justice. Obviously, it's something that happened a very long time ago in the 90s, but actually seeing it and hearing about it again, it just shows what an appalling miscarriage of justice it is for everyone affected, and it's important that those people now get the justice that they deserve.
Should they all be exonerated?
And that's what the compensation schemes are about. So the government has paid out about almost 150 million pounds to thousands of people already. Of course we want to get the money to the people as quickly as possible. That's why there are interim payments of up to, I think, £600,000 that can be made. There are 3 different schemes available, and for anyone who's affected, they should come forward, talk to the relevant bodies so they can get their case worked through as quickly as possible.
But will you take extra measures on top of those? There's a report this morning that your Justice Secretary is considering looking at either exonerating everybody, that's a recommendation that has been made, or taking the post office's ability to investigate and prosecute away. Would you like to see that happen?
So the Justice Secretary is looking at the things that you've described. It wouldn't be right to preempt that process. Obviously, there's legal complexity in all of those things, but he is looking at exactly those areas that you've described. It's right that we find every which way we can do to try and make this right for the people who were so, I said, wrongfully treated at the time. The compensation is a part of that. But as you say, there are legal things that may be possible as well, and that's what the Justice Secretary is looking at.
So those are potentially on the table.
Again, I wouldn't want to preempt or speculate on it, but those are all the types of things that...
So that's Rishi Sunak speaking this morning on Sunday with Laura. So, following on from that interview, I think we've got some important questions. I mean, it's quite a short interview overall. Please do feel free to drop in the video comments any other questions or points that you think might have missed. We've obviously only just watched it as it's only just gone out, so it is a bit of a blur in some ways, but we thought it was important to get the video out straight away to keep the momentum going for these sub-postmasters who do deserve this justice. So why have only 11 people received compensation? And with that, we're not talking about the interim payments, we're talking about having their cases finally settled, so there is some potential possibility that they can actually move on with their lives where that is possible from this terrible tragedy. Problem since 1999. I thought it was very interesting that that was brought up. When will all the cases be settled and when will they all receive justice? So, cases settled. So, only 11 cases have been settled. I think you mentioned 435, roughly, that cases that have been submitted. But we know at least 736 people have been affected by the scandal at an absolute minimum. Which if we compare that to yesterday when it said it was involved in 14,000 post offices initially, no idea how many post offices it ended up being in the end, but that is a very high proportion of people who've experienced severe problems, and I'm sure that the problems are probably more widespread than that. They possibly just are still coming to light today. Why are there such delays with these cases being settled? I mean, it seems from listening to Rishi Sunak and listening to people involved, and there isn't anybody out there saying that this isn't a problem and they know it's a problem and that Horizon is faulty and that these things haven't happened. So, whilst I do understand that there is processes to follow, why are these processes taking so long? We saw during the pandemic, the other thing we discussed today was PPE contracts. We saw how ministers can move the machinery of government extremely fast in things like procuring PPE, which didn't work out that well in that case. But why aren't they putting more pressure on this at the moment to resolve these cases? I would suggest that as public sentiment grows and continues to grow for this, that will be the pressure required for them to change stance and hurry this along. Because I can't see any reason why this should take so long at all. And it leads quite nicely into the next point. Problem since 1999. So Sunak said during that interview that it happened a long time ago in 1999. Obviously, in 1999 was when Horizon IT systems first started being installed in post offices. Is this an admission from Rishi Sunak that the government has been aware of problems with Horizon since 1999? Because I think this would be quite new. But also, it seems a bit offensive that the suggestion is that, well, this happened a long time ago, so people shouldn't be bothered about it. Well, people's lives are still being affected to this day. People's lives have been affected forever because people have lost their lives over this. I mean, there's no going back from that. But equally, we do know from the dramatisation of Mr. Bates versus the Post Office and people's accounts, this isn't something that happened in 1999. It's something that happened in 1999, in 2000, in 2001. 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. It continued happening. It wasn't just one mistake in time. It was a cataclysmic, style of mistakes. And then the cover-up of this that has followed then has continued right up until the present day, until it's been exposed. But the question is, If Sunak is referring to there have been problems with Horizon since 1999, why were these cases still being brought in the first place? That suggests that this should have never happened in the first place, which we know it shouldn't have. But why is it taken until now? And it links into the point about the compensation settlements. It's kind of suggesting now that, well, it's work in progress. Well, if this is 25 years in the making, how much longer are these people going to have to wait? 25 years is an insane amount of time. I mean, one of the things that does concern me is the ongoing use of Horizon. I do believe the Post Office are planning on replacing it, but are these issues fixed now? Are these problems still occurring? I'd be really interested to hear from people, particularly at the moment, who work in the Post Office, if these issues have been fixed, because there hasn't been really much in the news about that. Settled cases deadline. So Susan Knight, former sub-postmaster, asked a question about the deadline being worked towards and mentioned the interim payments. The government have publicised the latest Horizon compensation scheme, suggesting people can get an interim payment of $600,000. The suggestion from that, I would guess, is that an absolute minimum of anybody's claim is way below 600,000. Otherwise, they won't pay that out as an interim payment. But when are they going to be able to finally say, my case is settled, I can walk away from this? Did she get a question answered? I mean, that would be a question for Susan herself. But actually, it seemed like it was a bit like, we're trying the best we can. And that just doesn't seem good enough for people who've waited so long and have suffered, as he has said, and as the media have said, and as everyone agrees, one of the greatest miscarriages of justice seen in this country. £150 million in compensation. Now, this is a new figure, I believe. So previously, in 2019, the government said they'd paid out £58 million in Horizon compensation. But it has subsequently come out then that the vast majority of that has been swallowed in legal fees. And the view on compensation is it's to compensate for something bad that's happened. Just like in cases where they are lost and you have to pay the costs of the other side. That isn't compensation. That is the costs of having to have yourself represented at trial, to file cases, retain lawyers, etc., etc. So he's mentioned 150 million compensation has been paid out to sub-postmasters. How much of this has actually been received by sub-postmasters that hasn't had to go towards costs that they have incurred from these cases? And furthermore with that, we've obviously heard the heartbreaking cases of many sub-postmasters who they lost their investment, they lost the business, they lost the job. Surely if they receive any money, the first thing that's making right is that loss of income, that loss of a job. They've had to move, retrain. These are all costs. Compensation should be free and clear of all this. But how much has actually been received? I'm not so sure, given that the majority of the 58 million previously announced ended up going on costs. I would suspect there's something pretty similar here. But if anybody has any experience of this and would like to let me know, it would be really interesting to find out what is actually landing in people's accounts above and beyond where they would have actually been without the Horizon IT scandal happening in the first place. I'm going to suspect the number is zero and is probably still negative for the vast majority, if not everybody. In conclusion, I think it's really important here. It seems like the government are still on the back foot despite the publicisation of this and really don't have many answers of anything. Even though the petition was mentioned in the newspaper, which was good, there obviously wasn't a mention of it on Sunday with Laura with Rishi Sunak. So it is important that we keep pushing, keep sharing, keep signing it to ensure that it does get the attention it deserves. It is already it's hit the newspapers online over the weekend. It is currently now hitting the printed press as well, which is really good. Just in the time of this video, I think might make this a little bit of a regular feature, but we've got 851,695 people that signed at the beginning of the video. If we have a look now, we're now up to 856,837, so another 5,000 people in last quarter of an hour tops have been added to this. So we've got to keep the pressure on. Overall, in terms of submission of the petition, it seems like there's two competing things here. How do we keep letting it run to show the strength of public feeling is growing and the true strength of it, or do we get it in to strike while the iron's hot, so to speak? I've been thinking about this, and I think there might be a halfway house where potentially what we do is at this stage I look at submitting this to the chair of the Forfeiture Committee in the Cabinet Office to get a response, which doesn't mean that this is over. I think I should leave this petition open so that the numbers keep on growing. And then when we get the response from the Forfeiture Committee, then we're able to go back, if there is pushback on that, to say, actually, public opinion continues to grow on this. What are you going to do now, which will allow further pressure to be put on? Because the fact that she still retains a CBE in part for services to the post office, given the damning evidence which has already come out and continues to come out, and the effect this has had on people's lives, it just continues, I would imagine, to be a slap in the face of all these people who have been affected by this. So I hope that update was useful. I will try to commit to doing as regular updates as I can, because it is great reading all your emails. There's so many thanks coming in from a wide range of people. So I did just want to let particularly the sub-postmasters that have contacted me and all the sub-postmasters affected and the families that there is so much public support for this, and it is ever growing by the second. And to thank them again, once again, for reaching out and contacting me. I feel honoured that that's happening. I hope this petition goes some small way to keeping this story in the news cycle, because I think that is the next key thing. At the moment, progress is going at a snail's pace in terms of resolution, justice, compensation. I think it's important that we don't let this drop out of the news cycle, and that we keep the cases in the public spotlight and highlight further cases, because obviously the dramatisation and the documentary on ITV were good. They were fantastic, and it's taken many years of hard work that the sub-postmasters have done themselves to get to this stage. I think it's really important that everybody's voice is heard, that wants to be heard on this and wants to share the story. So absolutely, if anybody is interested in that, please contact me, and I'm happy to use any platform that I have to help you get your story out there, get the messages to the right people. Because as we've seen at the moment, although it's hitting the news, they are keeping it to, a minute and a half segments. A lot of the talk today with Rishi Sunak was on the upcoming general election. Well, that provides an opportunity, because this is something that I think, it's fair to say they would rather ignore, particularly in the general election year. But we can show that the strength of public feeling means this has to be dealt with, and dealt with properly, and not put on the sidelines merely because there's a general election coming up. Hope that update was useful, and please keep your messages coming in. I do read every single one of them, even though I'm not able to reply individually to them all, because there is literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds dropping into my mailbox, as I'm sure you can appreciate. And I have prioritised replying to the sub-postmasters and the families who have kindly reached out to me. So please do keep those messages coming in, and I will see you again shortly for another update. Take care. Bye.